How's everyone doing? Time to make this 2021 one of the best motherfucking years in your life. And it's gonna be quite simple. Simple with practice. Simple with practice. But here's a couple of tips. I think I labeled it down to five to literally set yourself up to make 2021 your best fucking year. Well, 2021 and the further years as your best fucking years because it'll start with 2021 and then you're just going to go on a momentum. So, around five tips. We'll see what happens, you know. You know how these videos kind of go and how channeling kind of just brings you even more knowledge as you roll. So, the first tip, and spoke about it in the podcast, but let's break it down a bit further, is that you can evolve yourself or change or grow, growth. You can have yourself grow extremely fast and quite effortlessly. Okay? If you understand this, whatever situation or reaction trait or trigger, that you have now, if you're able to perceive yourself, to look at it, to look at the behavior without judging, so unconditional love, just separation from the reaction, okay? Separation from the situation. You just kind of take a step back and look at it without judging, without criticizing, without saying that you're bad or the other person's bad or that reaction is shit and that you should feel bad. No, 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 no. Without absolutely no judgment, up to a point where you can just flick yourself if you find that your mind goes to it, because at times the mind, because of the language that we learn and the stuff that we watch, will automatically go to some of these things at times. So you just flick yourself, but you just take that stance of non-judging, okay? And looking at that situation. Already from doing that, you're practically 80% scot-free from that behavior, because you were able to perceive it, to look at it from what you could say your higher self point of view, from the universe's point of view, because the universe doesn't judge you. God doesn't judge you. They don't. It's kind of it's a ludicrous thing that has been taught, institutionalized, and was never really looked at. But when you understand that, if you weren't worthy, you wouldn't be on this fucking earth. You wouldn't be your unique self on this earth if you weren't worthy. Okay? If God or universe, present in everything, deemed you not worthy, your bed sheet would be flying out the window. Water would just spill and go. We're talking about that essence and presence that's in everything, okay? So you stepping out of your situation and looking at it with that unconditional love aspect, non-judgment, compassion is that extra step. But you doing that 80% step, you're nearly done. The rest is basically asking yourself, okay, well, from that standpoint and looking at this, what's the change? What would I rather do? What would I rather react? How would I rather react? How would I rather feel? You'd rather feel well. Oh, really? Simple. Yeah? So how would you react? How would you rewind and react? You do a bit of that Prince of Persia Sense of Time. Oh, yeah, I didn't react that way. You clean it up. You just kind of go, okay, so I'd rather act this way. I'd rather perceive this way. I'd rather feel this way. And then guess what? 90% done. That rest of that 10% is the repetition that you'll have to redo over and over, because the reaction is from a prior repetition. You've repeated that reaction. It deemed normal. You've seen other people, you've possibly seen other people doing the same kind of reaction, and it was normal. But now fuck that. You don't want to feel that way. You don't want to react that way. It doesn't really make you feel well. So you don't necessarily need to go lemming. Literally. And at that point, you'll repeat that new pattern, but because you're repeating it consciously, boom, you'll be done. Might even just take you, it could go from a night, depending on how you impress it, and especially if you impress it via repetition and emotion. So a bit of play acting could even get you in that ending mile for that repetition. Because you'll go, okay, how would I feel? Just off the shot. Okay, well, feel much better. I wouldn't react this way. I wouldn't really spend too much time looking at these things, not to react. That extra step also, as I said, compassion. So whatever it is, give yourself that compassion and give everyone else that compassion. Because it always goes into a loop. Comes from your hard drive. So as you do that, you just seal in that new pattern, that new set of pattern, okay? And it's practically done. The rest of the time is just you watching out for the mind's old pattern as you're doing those repetitions. Sometimes it'll try to drag you back in there, but yeah, flick it. Call it a day. So that will get you quite far, okay? If you decide to take the practice. Even as you listen to this video, don't even look at the video. Listen to it. In your mind, picture yourself. Visualize a prior habit that you have or a habit you want to change. And then visualize doing those process. And yeah, make sure you don't necessarily get distracted while you're doing this. Or don't get distracted by notification and all that. Balance time, right? That goes maybe for the sixth tip of 2021. But what else? I noted some of those downs because, you know, might as well get organized. Okay. In part with that change, okay? You are also, like, the second tip would be kind of realizing this co-op game that we're all playing in the, you know, in this world. Even universal aspect, but let's not get too far ahead. What I mean by that is, as you perceive something within another, okay? And you can even use it to help you out on that first tip, you know? As you perceive something within another, it's now in your database, okay? Or has been in your database. But you can make it more obvious to yourself by just saying, okay, now it's in my database. At that point, you are basically able to create with that ingredient, whether it's increasing your mood, you know, let's say if you cheer someone on or you appreciate someone's work, well, you're practically doing it to yourself. It comes from within. You're the one feeling it as well. So indirectly, as you perceive what that other person is doing that pleases you, you can start asking yourself, okay, what elements, what specifically, what ingredients in that just resonate with me, okay? And you can start noticing you're piling up all that data in your mind, you know? So as an example, quick little visual exercise, visualization exercise, because that can help you understand it a bit more, okay? Close your eyes, look at the game or even movie that you've currently watched or played recently, that you play a lot, okay? I'll go with an example of Final Fantasy VII Remake, okay? If you haven't seen it, go check out some footage on battle footage, okay? Check out some battle footage, all right? So you see that in your mind. You're replaying that video in your mind, okay? As you've seen it, because as you perceive it, now you can have it in your mind. So that's one, okay? But two, now take that same scene, okay? And if you guys have ever seen Shonen Jump Force, or even a game like Dragon Quest, the cell shading, okay? If you guys saw that 3D cell shading, or even better, Guilty Gear Xrd, okay? Or Dragon Ball Fighter Z, that kind of 3D cell shading, okay? Still in your mind, seeing that Final Fantasy VII footage, apply the same self-shading footage that you've seen with Dragon Ball Fighter Z or Guilty Gear Xrd on top. So you're basically overlapping two visualizations, okay? But it is still the same process that you've seen another footage, you've got the ingredients, now you can make a fusion. You can see both, and you can kind of picture it in your mind. Looking a bit different, right? But you can add more. You can say, okay, let me add the summons from Final Fantasy 15. If you've ever seen those footage, like gigantic summons. Okay, cool. Area wiping type summons. You know, you can Play with that in your mind. Or, you know what? Change that completely. Okay, well, instead of having it be an active battle game, maybe I want it to be a bit like XCOM. So you start seeing footage of XCOM and you can make a splice in your mind. Mostly because you've captured that footage and you're able to play and measure with it. Okay, how does that relate to other people? Well, if, let's say, you have a personal issue, okay? Let's say you have a tricky time accepting praise to a certain degree, okay? What personal issue I'm dealing with, long story short, told you guys about the 3-year-old incident. Still, let's say you have that, or something else, okay? You have a difficulty picturing yourself a certain way, okay? Well then, consider a time where you've supported or given praise to someone else, okay? It's still coming from within you, okay? It is still a form of, to a certain degree, it's not in the crude term projection, but it is in a way a projection, as it is coming from within you. You see it in movies. You could see it in movies or in other shows, you know, without diving into the programming for the specific factors that those movies and shows would set up to get those feelings. You can just beeline to the feeling with those, okay? Well, it's still done from within yourself. So indirectly, you're gathering those pieces from the exterior and you are able to help. You're able to create and help yourself as well as helping and inspiring others, because the same momentum or the same mechanic works with others. Meaning they'll see what you do, get inspired by you, see how you talk, how you move, depending on how they resonate, and that's more tools for the bank, you know, for creation to then inspire the other. Can you see how that works? You know, it's really simple. But it takes a while to just pause and realize this, because we've often been sent reacting all over the place and, you know, being manipulated like puppets to a certain degree with our emotions, because we didn't necessarily expect that, you know, an abundance of television and TV shows would make it so prone to us reacting outside of a context. Yet, when you kind of just take that in, you know, you pause, you take it all into consideration, and you just level your tools, meaning I can understand this within this other person. So in a sense, I'm still seeing it from my perspective, my point of view. It is not the other. It is me allowing myself to perceive this. It is me facilitating, or it is me allowing myself to perceive this. The other is facilitating that vision within me. Okay? It's like a very natural co-op that we have going. It's just that, like I said, collectively we've, at times, by default, we've decided to keep crap, the finger pointing, the judging, the labeling, or the sticking with duality and labels. And, well, you saw the consequences, or you saw the results, I should say. Now you flip that shit, you know? And that also kind of binds into being more aware of your emotional reaction and being more in control. So it kind of binds with what's been spoken about previously. You know, you are less in reaction mode. You're much more going, okay, well, how would I prefer things to roll? How would I prefer to feel? How would I prefer to perceive things? How would I prefer to live? You know, if you want to live a different kind of lifestyle, you can perceive it within others, and immediately you've got the tools in your mind. You've felt it. You've allowed yourself to feel it. So you can then start visualizing yourself in that position, not out of a jealousy or comparison thing, just because you're having fun with it. All right? So it's very, very simple. Yet you want to take time to just pause and not get distracted or being rolled around with any kind of manipulative emotional momentum, you know, on the societal level, as we've seen. So let's say another one. Not gonna go too much into the metaphysical stuff, but fuck it. Why not? Okay. Realizing that everything that you do, everything that you think about, everything that you say, everything that you kind of feel, in a sense, all of that is prayer. There's a religious side, but then we can explain it with the scientifical side, the neuroscience as well. Okay. What I mean by that is everything that you say, do, feel, perceive gets into your data drive, into your hard drive, your mind, your pool of things, yet as it comes in, it is more perceivable. You now have that lens to perceive it. Okay? With that in mind, you will perceive it even further because you've kind of added that lens to your perception, and you are now perceiving it further ahead of time, or you could say you'll perceive it further in future times as you now have that lens. If you didn't have it, it's kind of like not knowing cheesecake. If you didn't know cheesecake, you wouldn't be able to point it out. It's the exact same thing. In how it relates to prayer, or how it is prayer, well, being able to perceive it means an absolute surety of perceiving it in the same way, having the same emotional reaction, thus feeling the same way when you're going to perceive it after. So you're literally setting it up ahead of time without knowing, because you've had yourself perceiving and reacting, which then puts it in your database, puts it as a lens, puts it as this is in my world, this is how it works in my world, which then makes it come back later on. This is why some people may go on a stint of, let's say, shit posting to a certain degree, or Facebook arguing, or online arguing, or criticizing multiple things, or hell, especially the whole criticizing the rich, that happening over and over and over because their lens is there. Yet here's the problem. This is prayer because as you judge another, you judge yourself. Always happen. It's coming from within. So depending on what you set up in that hard drive and you perpetually bring back, well, you can easily shoot yourself in the foot multiple times with akimbo double pistols when you don't know. See what I mean? Like, you've always brought out the example of certain people that are always in a miserable rut. It's not their fault. It's because they've had habits of thinking, talking, and feeling. Yet, like prayer, you're always bringing it back to you. You're feeling it in the now. You're reacting to it in the now. It is in your perception. It is the way that you perceive life. Thus, it will come back to you. So, when you understand it that way, of course, you don't see it as a gun-to-head type of bullshit that used to be happening with the institutional aspect of religion. Where it's like, oh, you better not think that or else Satan's going to get you and you're going to go to the worst place ever. You don't fall for that because, again, that's manipulation to a certain degree. And also, it has you reacting the same way, which is going to propagate. Again, you fear the Satan once, and you're going to fear it over and over and over and over and over because you've reacted in the moment. It is part of your world. So what do? Well, you just start cleaning it up. Go back to that first point and just asking yourself, okay, how do I react? How do I respond? How do I want to feel? And then you implement that new prayer, in a sense, or that new neural pathway. Because then, hell, it's kind of like what Tony Robbins says. It is kind of like the how do you call it? Reticular activating system. Thought creating the feeling, but also feelings creating thoughts, which will lead to actions, which will lead to results, which will lead to that confirmation. So you literally are setting yourself up in the present. You're literally setting up your future in the present. The days of future past. But yeah, once you see it that way, you kind of go, oh, fuck, yeah, I can't really keep going that momentum, especially if you don't necessarily like it, some of those patterns in behavior, especially knowing that you didn't consciously choose them, understanding this, So you wouldn't want to consciously shoot yourself with twin pistols in the foot, naturally. So you can just detach and change. So understanding this kind of helps you, one, noticing your own patterns, two, understanding where you got those patterns, and then three, you can understand how others are stuck in that without their conscious knowing. Like said, prior generation, repetition, repetition, repetition. Oftentimes it's really hard to get away from that repetition when you're not conscious of it, you know? And even when you're conscious, at times it's a bit of a hurdle. Yet practice and repetition. So when you see your thoughts, your actions, your words as prayers, or even as neural reprogramming, setting up for what's coming up next, then you become a bit more mindful of it. And not in a judgmental way. Again, never judge. Don't condemn. Always have that compassion, that universal compassion. All right? Where am I getting at? Maybe fourth one? Maybe third one? Let's see. Okay. Well, hey, that kind of goes in tandem with that last point, with the prayer or even neural reprogramming. But it is to, let's say, hell, if you want to get into prayer, even science will bring it up, quantum physics, okay? Yet, you ask without motive. What does that mean? It's to understand the subtle difference of asking because it would be fun and it feels thrilling and it feels fantastic and creative and playful, and asking because of a need. That's the motive, as if you're not even feeling it in the now. There's a very interesting difference to it. You can also use the aspect of, would you do an activity because you like it, because it is fun, because it brings you joy, endless flow of creativity and passion and growth? Or would you do it because you have a sense of justice? Do you do it because you have a sense that other people need this? That you need, maybe it's mixed words, got to watch out for that. Because you need to save other people, because you feel that the world needs saving, that other people need saving, okay? Now you can kind of get where I'm going at, and noticing the examples in the past where we had leaders, either religious leader or political leaders, that were rolling off with that neat intention, that aspect of people can't help themselves, and you can you can see that with that mindset, what comes out is not necessarily helpful, or not as maximum helpful, because it's always having it's not doing it out of pure joy. It's also assuming weakness out of others, instead of, it's going at it with that energy, with that assumption, versus that full juice of loving it, growing, being playful, and not being how would you say, not holding yourself to a specific end result. Okay, that's a big ass key. Because you'll find yourself getting more and more in flow state with that different, again, doing it out of pure flow and passion. Same kind of goes with prayer. If you pray as if you've already got it, or as if you're already feeling it, as if just because it's fun, just because it's playful, just because you're having fun. Hell, maybe even take out the word pray. If you love daydreaming would be a better word. Visualize, whatever, okay? Or affirmations. You're doing it because it's fun, because you're feeling that pump, you're feeling that growth, you're feeling that energy, all right? Not because you're in an aspect or in a state of need. Because if you do it in a state of need, well, you're reaffirming the need. Goes back to what's been told before, right? You're reaffirming the need. You're projecting it in the future. You're saying, I don't have it now. I'm not feeling it now. While if you do it with that other way, you're feeling it now. It's inconsequential whether you get it or not. You're just feeling it now. You're loving the creation aspect. And you also understand, especially with visualization and daydreaming, that when you spend that time, you close your eyes and you visualize at the maximum speed that you can, okay? Because you're thinking at light speed. Well, then you're able to kind of build your projects real fast. You're able to do both things, seeing the end point, already feeling that end point in that end state, and you're also able to start building it up real fast in your mind. You're able to do this shit at hyper speed to the degree that you concentrate and you allow yourself to focus. So with that in mind, you're no longer sending, out prayers in vain in that aspect. You're no longer saying, "Oh, I absolutely need this. Please give it." And remember, universe, you're already fucking worthy to it. It's not judging you. So do not even feel an inch of judgment or negative feeling for whatever you desire. Because if you're doing it out of fun, playfulness, and growth, done deal practically. Hell, you can just feel it right now. And what that does is, as mentioned before, it re-imprints your subconscious mind. You will feel it more often. You will feel those states in flow much more often instead of that utter repetition. And then you never know what science and metaphysics and all that stuff, and even the spiritual, you never know what can happen to you. You never know what could happen with the synchronicities. You leave yourself open to it, but in the state where you just don't necessarily care about that end result. You don't get nitpicky over it. You just have playful fun creating. Get that juice running. Watch out. There's some interesting, cool stuff that can happen, okay? There's some really interesting, cool stuff that can happen that can come your way. So, what else? I think that's practically about it. And I think in the end, maybe closing point, because there's not that much else after, it all kind of blends into each other. Hell, maybe a little bit of a cheat sheet would be, whenever you dream and you wake up from your dream, try to stay in bed and try to go back into the locations you were in your dreams, so that you can get a feel for how you can take your dream and bring it into a visualization and blur the lines. And you can get a very interesting flow when it comes to that. There's maybe there would be more to talk about when it comes to dreams, or you can find your research and such into it, but keeping yourself both in that aspect of visualization and dream state and playing with that, again, balance, you can find some very interesting tools or changes that you can have do it in with that state, but you'll experiment on your own. So yeah, to close it off, at the end of the day, got yourself 4 to 5 tips, or maybe the final one would just be balance. Right, ultimate one. Always understand that you can make a misstep, you can get a result that you don't necessarily want, but you can always balance it. See, the way we've been programmed and, parented, indoctrinated in school, was always this aspect of one shot, one deal, and you get consequences afterward. Hell, even when it comes to social media, you say one thing that somebody doesn't like, and you might have said that thing 4 years ago or 3 years ago, and then people dogpile on you for some reason. We've seen that in the media. But all of that is an inconsequential, or I guess an unfortunate consequence of that parenting method, that perception method. Meaning, that parenting method did not allow you to balance yourself. I can even say from experience, when it came to the black community, parents were fucking harsh. They've had it worse. That's fully understood. Yet, the problem that happens with that is you're not allowed to balance. You're scolded, you're yelled at, or even worse, you get physical abuse. So you get both the mental and physical abuse. And you're not allowed to balance yourself out. It's automatic reaction. And this is toxic poison for everyone, not just the black community, it's everyone. Because eventually, through that repetition in the subconscious, let's say you make one misstep, or you get fearful of making a misstep. Instead of understanding that, it's just a result you don't necessarily like. Okay, cool. What's the result you want? Here? Go. Done. That's it. That's all. You can even feel it in a moment. Yet, unfortunately, and again, as I explained it, kind of like giving an apology, but, an unnecessary apology to the future, to the next generation, to to the millennials because that was something that wasn't perceived. But again, we don't know what we don't know, and we've gotten to this understanding because of this massive collaboration. Again, best time of fucking history, because now we're able to perceive those habits and repetition and what they cause. So if I parent you, scolding you for a result that you didn't want, like a mistake or whatever, I'm not helping you. I'm actually making it worse, because then you're easily accessible to that eggshell mindset, where it's like you'll be walking on eggshell. Oh, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to upset this person. I don't want to be... But it doesn't matter, because look at how flawed that parenting method is. I react because I perceive that you did something bad, but it's perceived from within my perception. You know? That perception may not even have that compassion of, oh, wait, you're learning. You're taking steps. Whoops! You know, it's flawed. It was flawed to begin with. Both on the aspect of the religious right and the extreme left, you know? The social aspect. It was always flawed. People reacting out of people not, responding to their pronoun. Sorry, that it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. It's always perpetuating that toxic cycle. And that's what's been driving a lot of people nuts and into depression and anxiety as well. You know? Along with the repetition of those toxic cycles on television and all that. You know, it's like, main character can't do this, or that other character is going to respond. You know, it's the repetition of that toxic goop, incidentally, of those habits. But when you get that you're always growing, you will always evolve, you will always, let's say, reach a next point. You will always balance yourself out. There's always things that you didn't necessarily consciously choose initially. Remember, we all started blank slate, and that be this understanding of 2021. We are all born the same way, blank slate, and then we get influenced by our environment, and then the social aspect of it, the television, and all that. But we are all born in that blank slate. And then two, the heart connection tells us the exact same thing. Whether you insult another one or you insult yourself, it's always a variation of that same feeling. Disconnection and disunity. So when you get that, you allow yourself and you allow everyone else to balance themselves out. You have that utter compassion and understanding of such balance. And you no longer react to it. You no longer walk on eggshells. And you no longer kind of have like this energetic tangle with others that would react because they're still stuck in that trap. You understand it. It's a momentum we didn't perceive. And we didn't understand how fast it would take up with both the growth of media and social media. We didn't fucking expect it. So when you get that, it's like, oh, you have a result? What's the result you'd prefer? That's it, that's all. You don't think about the other person's reaction. That's within their hard drive. And at times there are people that can be helped out of it. And sometimes they can't because of that repetition. Sometimes another event, another set of reactions will get them to kind of pause and go, oh shit, what's going on? Is it me? So have that fun, 2021 is going to be fucking epic. And the next few years are going to be beyond fucking badass. All right? Yes, the situation looks a bit of a crumple. Because now we're kind of noticing that we collectively have had, how can you say, various habits that we didn't necessarily look into. Various habits of relying on certain things or having, let's say, emotional bypass or being taught emotional gymnastics in a way or being forced into certain labels that wouldn't necessarily make us feel well. We've noticed it. We've kind of seen how, okay, well, this is kind of nutty. And this is what kind of allowed a lot of time to reflection and receive all this stuff or increase your meditative skills as well. So noticing this is just like, okay, cool. How do we balance this? What do we want further? What's better? What's even better for the collective, you know? And we're no longer relying on single groups or single organizations or single governments. It's like, no, we've seen how that kind of fell. And is not necessarily a stable, same goes with media. It is not necessarily a stable substance, a stable platform for your emotional well-being, because those entities will never know you as well as you will. They'll never know you to that granularity. Only you will. Same kind of goes for all your family members and people around you. Only you will know yourself to that degree and that depth and that richness. So when you take that time and you play with those tips, you know, you go deeper into yourself. You acknowledge, what do you want to change? How do you want to change? You take that unconditional standpoint, remembering how you were as a baby. Ain't no judging babies and ain't no evil babies. All right? It's that simple. We're all born from that same blank slate. And we can all access that right now. Again. So take your life into your own hands and play with this. And remember, we're all playing co-ops. So that video, whatever you spot in there, whatever you can use, whatever you can play with your visualization using this or any other things, or even make variations of this, go for it. All right? Because we're all playing co-op. Have that fun, man. And let's make 2021 the best year ever. Oh, and also let's react less. See, now we're getting to that cool crux point where as a civilization, we can look back, we can understand some of these points, you know, most in general way, because we didn't live those, and we can kind of go, you know what? This divisiveness, this fearfulness, this manipulation using fear, fuck that. We've seen that happen in the past. We're not here for it. Have a good one, people.